On behalf of the Board of Trustees of Central European University, and as Provost and Academic Pro-Rector of the University, it is my privilege to convene the opening ceremony of Central European University's 21st academic year. In addition to our students, faculty and staff, we are honored by the presence of many distinguished guests here today. We are especially pleased to welcome ambassadors from many of our students' home countries, as well as other members of the diplomatic corps and representatives of other Hungarian universities. I'd like to extend a special welcome to Wolfgang Reinicke, the founding dean of CEU's School of Public Policy and International Affairs, who will deliver the opening address this afternoon. Today, as we noted, we are proud to celebrate the beginning of our university's 21st academic year. We marked the university's 20th anniversary last June in this same room with a conference that provided reflections on university and the meaning of open society. I expect that we will continue to reflect on our mission and on our place in this changing world in the coming academic year as well. The past two decades have been a time of excitement and change, marked by significant institutional growth, community engagement, and outstanding academic success. We look forward to even greater achievements in the next 2 decades, and we are confident that everyone at the university will play a crucial part in this unfolding process. No tribute to the exceptional history and success of CEU could be complete without mentioning its founder, George Soros, whose far-reaching vision and continuing support have been critical in forming this unique university. I would like to formally recognize and thank the wonderful faculty and staff of Central European University who share the responsibility for the extraordinary accomplishments that CEU has achieved over these past 20 years. The university could not have made such steady progress without the tremendous contribution of both its master's and its doctoral students. We are very proud of the exceptional quality of their academic work, the significance of their professional achievements, and the noteworthy contribution that they make to the world community. We hope that all these reflect the academic and life experience that they have had during their studies at CEU. We honor past and continuing students and welcome incoming students as well today. Your Excellencies, honored guests, colleagues, students, ladies and gentlemen, our ceremony will begin with the opening remarks by President and Rector John Shattuck. Professor Shattuck, please.
Thank you, Kati, and welcome to all of you. Kati has done such a wonderful job of introducing all the distinguished people, both on stage and out there, that I won't add any except to say that I'm thrilled that you're all here and that we're all on a voyage together, heading through our academic year. Now, I'm sure you may have noticed that those of you who are older students that have been here before and faculty and new students are seeing this as well, that every CEU department has a somewhat different opening schedule. So we always begin our year with a series of takeoffs, sort of like an academic airport. But by now I think everyone should be flying high, and certainly we hope you stay that way right through graduation. My job as rector and air traffic controller is to make sure you get there, that you enjoy the ride, and that you actually learn something along the way. So this will be quite exciting. I want to welcome all our new students and ask those new students who are here to stand up so that we can see who you are and give you a special opening day greeting. Wonderful. Now let me tell you a little bit about yourselves. You certainly know about yourselves individually, but let me tell you about yourselves collectively. You come from the largest pool of applicants in CEU history. You've been chosen from nearly 6,000 students across the world who applied, and your class is the most selective and highly qualified class that CEU has ever admitted. Now, I'm sure that previous classes would perhaps take issue with that, but I think we can statistically demonstrate how outstanding you are. So I want to particularly congratulate you for being here and getting here. I also want to introduce you to Peter Johnson, if he could stand, who's the Vice President for, he may not be able to be here right now, but he's the person who's in charge of the process that got you here. So you'll get to know him, I'm sure, along the way. You come from 84 countries across the globe, from Albania to Zimbabwe, and you're joining a university community that now has students, faculty, and staff from over 100 countries, the largest collection ever, and attracts applications from an incredible 140 countries, which sounds like a veritable United Nations of countries. Now, those of you who are new students, most of what I'm going to say is directed to you. I know what it's like to leave home and come to a faraway place as a new student in a foreign country. So I empathize with what feelings undoubtedly are going through your mind. Let me just tell you, when I was 17, I was an exchange student in the unlikely place of Damascus, Syria, just before the Ba'athist Revolution, which shows you how old I am. It was the first time I had ever left the US. It was the first time I had ever even been in an airplane. And I was filled with anxiety, both about flying and about going to Syria, which didn't exactly help me express myself in French when I got there, which I had to do since no one else spoke my native English. So somehow I made it through, and the experience had a positive influence on me at the beginning of my own international career. And I'm sure your time at CEU will have a similar, even more positive effect on you. And I would say that starting out in Budapest is certainly a lot more promising than starting out in Damascus on the eve of a military coup, which is only now being challenged. So let me take a few moments to reflect with you on the university that brings us all together. CEU was born out of a great promise and a powerful idea. The promise, as you know, was made 20 years ago when the walls in this region came down and people could finally come together to teach and study and learn. The idea was that a society where people are free to inquire and experiment and take risks is the place to build a new kind of institution. The founders of CEU, led by George Soros, had a vision of a university as an open society that would draw scholars from all over the region and eventually from all over the world. Today, CEU is that university, and you are its scholars. In a speech in Cairo 2 years before the popular uprisings that are now sweeping across the Middle East and North Africa, Barack Obama spoke about the coming of a new age. His words are worth repeating here because they speak to the kind of university we are, I think. He said, "Human history has often been a record of nations and tribes and religions subjugating one another in pursuit of their own interests. Yet in this new age, such attitudes are self-defeating. Today we are interdependent, and any effort to elevate one nation or group of people over another will inevitably fail. So whatever we think of the past, we must not be prisoners of it. Our problems must be dealt with through partnership. Our progress must be shared." Now, how do these words relate to our university? I told you a moment ago how diverse we all are as a community. And at CEU, we learn to make assets out of our differences of nation and tribe and religion, not the obstacles to progress that they have been at many other times in history. Our mission, of course, is the pursuit of truth. But truth, as we all know, is elusive and has many parts, some of them conflicting. Take, for example, the conflicting truths of history. History has placed a heavy hand on many of the nations and peoples represented in our community. We have an obligation to study history so that we can understand the different parts of truth that burden different nations and peoples in different ways. If our mission is the pursuit of truth, we must also study the realities around us. We must use the tools of critical thinking to address the challenges of our time, the economy, the environment, the rule of law, the organization of society, democracy and governance, media and communication, international relations, human rights and security, and the many other challenges facing the world today. Now, the search for truth at a university, particularly at CEU, requires us to work across disciplines and combine theory and analysis with practice and engagement. We do this at CEU by bringing together the many parts of the university, the humanities, which help us understand the concepts, the values, and traditions of society, the social sciences, which help us grasp the interaction of political, economic, and cultural structures, law and business, which help us frame the rules and operations of our institutions, and public policy, which helps us bridge the academic world and the world of action and train new generations of leaders. Now, the pursuit of truth has to be understood in many different contexts, especially at CEU. People across our community may have sharply different points of view about what is the truth, and that's the way it should be. We respect freedoms of speech and inquiry that allow different points of view to be expressed, and we approach our intellectual and social life in a spirit of tolerance for viewpoints different from our own. But we must also use critical thinking to assess what we see and hear and read, and we certainly see many things. We live in an age of manipulative and instantaneous communication. In this environment, facts are often less understood than advocacy, and certainly less respected. Analysis, less understood than ideology, and truth, less apparent than prejudice. So as CEU students, if I could say there's one thing that you must do while you are here at CEU, and many of you have already done this and that's why you're here, is learn to think for yourselves, to seek, analyze, and weigh all the information and opinion with which you are bombarded every day, with which, by rapidly changing and increasingly sophisticated communications technology and social media. You must guard against attractive falsehoods, and there are many of them lurking around, even in this building. Resist easy conclusions, and above all, exercise your own informed judgment. And my job as rector is to bring all the parts of CEU into closer contact so that we can make the university greater than the sum of its parts. And to do this, I encourage all of you to look beyond your department and find things that interest you in other departments and research centers, to seek out students and faculty from other disciplines and ask them questions about what they're studying or teaching and why. This is exactly how new initiatives at CEU get started. Let me just name 4 recent examples. The Center for European Union Research, which now brings together scholars from many fields who are interested in Europe. The Center for Network Science, which studies network patterns in social activity that reflect similar patterns in the physical world. The Centers for Ottoman and Eastern Mediterranean Studies, which expand CEU's horizons in history, medieval, and nationalism studies. And the Center for the Study of Conflict Resolution and Genocide Prevention, which will bring together scholars from law, international relations, history, gender studies, and sociology to address one of the great moral challenges of our time. Now, for CEU to grow and come together as a community, we need more physical space. We are in a lovely building, but it is not our building. Fortunately, we've recently acquired the space we need, and over the coming year, we hope to begin to develop it in 2 new buildings along Nador Street. Our goal is to bring together the whole university, including the business school and the cognitive science department, which are now in other parts of Budapest. And we're in the stages of choosing an architect for this exciting project, and the redevelopment of our campus will be a major feature of our lives in the year and beyond. Let me mention 3 other projects very quickly this fall that will strengthen the university. The first is the most far-reaching, and you'll hear about it in a moment from our distinguished Dean of the School of Public Policy and International Affairs, and that is the opening of this new school. I'm not going to steal your message, Wolfgang, so don't worry. But I want to say just 3 quick things about the new school. First, it will be a place at CEU where theory and practice come together, where interdisciplinary thinking is brought to bear on public policy at all levels, local, national, regional, transnational, and global. Second, the school will be distinctive because unlike many similar schools, it will focus not exclusively on government and governance, but on civil society and the impact of civil society on public policy. Third, the school will be built within the university, not outside it, and it will involve any department and any faculty member who wants to participate. I hope that's not stealing your thunder, Wolfgang. The second project I want to mention briefly is one that's quite exciting and somewhat contested, and it's CEU's new International Institute for Advanced Studies. This month, we are taking responsibility for supporting and administering an independent institute that brings leading scholars from international universities all over the world to Budapest for 1 or 2 semesters to interact with CEU and other universities in Hungary. The institute will give our university and Hungarian universities even broader access than we now have to the global scholarly community, and will be an exciting source of new research and ideas in the social sciences and humanities. Finally, I want to announce an important initiative, which in a sense flows from what I'm saying today, and that responds to the many challenges to open society that we can see all around us, including right here in Hungary. During the coming year, CEU will host a series of dialogues on freedom and democracy. These public discussions will be open to everyone, to the university and the community, and will bring scholars and activists together to debate the meaning of democracy and civil society, freedom of speech and the media, freedom of information and the internet, democratic constitutionalism, and other subjects at the heart of what makes an open society. That's what a university like CEU should be doing at a time of great upheaval like the one we're living through today, upheaval that I believe carries both danger and opportunity for open society. So let me then conclude by saying that your studies here will teach you much about the world that you will enter when you will graduate. They will teach you ideals you can live by and realities you will encounter. You've encountered many of them in your lives already. And you will do well if during your time at CEU you learn to be both an idealist and a realist. One of our founders once said what it means to combine these two qualities, which is rarely done. Let me conclude with the words of Václav Havel. He said, "I am not an optimist because all does not end well, nor am I a pessimist because all does not end badly. Instead, I am a realist who carries an ideal, and the ideal is that freedom has meaning and is worth the struggle." Welcome to CEU. Congratulations on being here.
Thank you, Professor Shattuck. And now I'm delighted to introduce a very special guest. It's a very special chairman of our very special Board of Trustees, Leon Botstein.
Thank you, very special Provost, for the very special introduction. Let me welcome all of you, especially the new students, on behalf of the Board of Trustees, and particularly the founder, the honorary chairman of the board, George Soros. We are extremely proud of the university, proud of all of you. It's wonderful to hear that you've been selected from 6,000 potential students, but the invidious comparison to the previous generation of students shouldn't be taken too seriously. Being hard to get into doesn't make you a better student. So when this university opened over 20 years ago, and only a few students came, they were idealistic. They actually showed a great deal of courage, and that set a tradition for the students here as graduate students in the university. And so those of you who come to the university step proverbially into the shoes of many generations of fantastic CEU students, and so you enter a great tradition of both scholarship and activism. I want to say the plans for the university under the wonderful leadership of John Shattuck. Indeed, there'll be a lot of construction and change and new programs, and it is an exciting time to be here in the university. I want to say that, as the rector-president said, this is a different kind of university that places a different kind of obligation on you as students. And that is, it is not only a place where you continue traditions of scholarship, but also think about ways in which you can actually enter the world in ways that are not purely related to the academic traditions. This is a university that really wants to change how universities interact with their societies. It's a deeply felt conviction, so that unlike some graduate universities, most of you will not end up in academic professions or quasi-academic professions, but many of you, even those of you not in the School of Public Policy or in the School of Business, will end up in practical roles in your societies. And that would be something that would please the university and do honor to its foundation. This university was founded in order to do something different, because the universities in this part of the world, and practically all parts of the world, had a very ambivalent history with their relationship to government and to society. During the communist era and during the previous eras, what did universities do to actually resist and to undermine tyranny, absence of freedom, intolerance, sectarianism, and many of the things that are the opposite of the ideals of an open society? So the fact is, can we build a university that uses the traditions of learning and at the same time sparks a proper resistance and optimism, intelligent optimism, about the transformation of society? Universities were not particularly distinguished in the history of certain kinds of tyranny in the 20th century that were not communist in nature. The final thing I would like to say on behalf, I think, of the board is, for those of you who've come from many, many countries around the world, look around you here in Budapest. Look at this room, built in the 1840s at the break point in European history. It shows you the importance of a view of history, a construct of history, of classical history. If you look at the columns, if you look at the sculpture, if you look at the murals, of a dynastic monarchy, not built on national identity, but built on dynastic history and loyalty. That monarchy, just as this building was built, entered a period of long collapse and conflict. In its place came nationalism. In this, not only city, but country around it, the definition of the Hungarian, the definition of the European national. That in turn finally entered a period of forced collectivism, membership in a communist unit of Eastern Europe around the Soviet bloc. That fell apart in 1990 and gave birth to a revival of nationalism and also an expansion of the idea of Europe, which is now under severe siege. In this very city is history embedded in every street, every district, a mirror of a struggle of a continent about how to identify the individual in relationship to the group, how to define freedom, how to live side by side with ethnic and political and religious difference. This city has the largest surviving Jewish community in Europe outside of the former Soviet Union. It is a place in which you in your daily lives will encounter the difficulties of making the rhetoric of open society real as a conduct of your daily life as a private individual or as a citizen. It's a wonderful opportunity in a wonderful place where you can learn not only from people, but from the buildings and the environment around it. You will have a wonderful time, and we are very proud of you, and welcome to the Open Society University, which is the Central European University. Congratulations.
Thank you, Leon, for these wonderful, inspiring words. And now, in line with tradition, 2 CEU students will give their presentations. First, a current student will make some remarks, and she will be followed by an incoming student. So please welcome Shaila Shahabovic from Bosnia and Herzegovina from the Department of Gender Studies.
President and Rector, Chairman of the Board, distinguished guests, fellow students, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to begin with telling you 2 little stories. A few days ago, I was back home in Bosnia and Herzegovina. I was chatting with a couple of my friends in a cafe. One of them told us a story about his job. He was unable to register an academic institute in the country, for there is no regulation for academic work on the state level. I didn't ask how he felt about it. I asked who was responsible for laws on that level of administration. I asked if there was a web page on which I could read the text of the law concerning his case. But I didn't get any answers. Instead, someone at the table changed the topic and started to talk about a book that everybody speaks about these days in Bosnia. There's nothing special about this book, except that a large number of people have read it. I asked my friends if they liked it, but I also felt we should go beyond the informal responses. I made a plan of how to research this particular book. I said that I need to know about the audience response towards this book, that we have to investigate the politics of the popular literature production, that we need to collect information about the influence of gender norms on publishing agendas in the region. This lack of knowledge about the subject is unbearable, I said. We have to start a project about this. Knowledge production is in our hands, and we are responsible for it. Suddenly, I noticed that I was the only one talking. Someone at the table whispered to her neighbor, "She's from CEU." It is true. My name is Shaila Shahabovic. This is my 4th year here. And this is what Central European University has done to me. I don't just listen to stories anymore. I want to understand them. 3 years ago, when I was accepted to CEU's Gender Studies doctoral program, I thought I was organized and smart. Those illusions are completely vanished now. Yet, along with my beautiful picture of myself, what also disappeared is my notion of the world as a random place, led by coincidence and impossible to comprehend. To those who are at this university for the first time, I can say this. CEU is not the name you simply add to your professional CV. It is not a school to get your diploma from, turn your back to, and never ask about it again. No matter at what stage in your life you are, this is not the place to finish your education. Whenever you come to this university, you will find a beginning. Coming to CEU, I was almost certain I was a feminist writer who knows what her life would be in 10 years. Most of all, what her career and her ideas would be in 10 years. Though I still see myself as a feminist writer, I have learned that being a feminist and being a writer is not a clear choice you make once in your life. I have learned to recognize a community to write for, but also that my work is never finished and that there is a new question opening with every word I write. The experience of getting access to the resources for the struggle to give my best has changed my writing, my views, and my feeling for life forever. This is an open and receptive community, and if you're accepted, it means you are indeed needed. Once you get your student card and the permission to enter a CEU building that follows with it, you will be expected to search for what you need, ask for what is necessary for your personal growth, and inquire what is required from you to contribute to the knowledge production network being built here every day. Be ready to question most of the facts you thought to be so common and natural that you couldn't imagine your life without them before. And last but not least, be ready to enjoy that quest all the way.
Thank you, Shaila. I will now ask one of our new students to say a few words. Rubina Shamsuddin is starting from India, and she's starting her studies in the new Department of Cognitive Science. Rubina, please.
President and Rector, Provost and Academic Pro-Rector, Chairman of the Board, distinguished guests, dear friends and colleagues. I come from India, the land of many identities with 114 languages, 7 major religions, innumerable cuisines, 28 states, and 1.2 billion people. So I'm not a stranger to diversity, yet only a week at CEU has introduced me to even more wonderful cultural variation. It feels refreshing to have warm, pleasant interactions with friends from countries and communities that I would otherwise not have had the opportunity to meet. I was initially attracted to CEU as my research interests are perfectly echoed in CEU's new department, the Department of Cognitive Science. We at Cognitive Science look at the brain and behavior and try to understand the human mind. Cognitive science is an interdisciplinary field that links psychology, neuroscience, anthropology, linguistics, philosophy, and artificial intelligence. I hope to pursue my research interests in infant developmental cognition, guided by the extremely good research into the area being conducted at the Cognitive Development Center. I and 5 of my colleagues will be the first generation of PhD students at the new Cognitive Science Department, looking into a wide array of research areas aimed at understanding human behavior. I'm extremely pleased to represent our department at the CEU opening ceremony today. I would like to mention some very helpful and kind assistance I have received from the CEU administrative staff, the Student Life Office, and our extremely dedicated department coordinator. I'm very grateful for their help in settling down in Budapest, so far away from my home. I look forward to a lot of new experiences during my next 3 years here at CEU. I look forward to new questions and new answers in my research into the development of infant cognition. I look forward to helping to form and create a new program in cognitive science. I look forward to exploring new places and meeting new people. And I very much hope I will be able to share these experiences with many of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rubina. It is my great pleasure now to introduce our next speaker and at the same time welcome a new colleague, Professor Wolfgang Reinicke, the founding Dean of the School of Public Policy and International Affairs, will give his opening address.
Thank you, Kati. Chairman Botstein, Rector Shattuck, Excellencies, honorary guests, faculty, staff, and most importantly, returning and new students. I saw that the new students are in the majority here. This is especially welcome. And we're all special. You are all special. And I'm very honored and excited to be able to address you today as we open a new academic year. Like many of you, I'm new to CEU and new to Budapest, and I look very much forward to experiencing the excitement that Leon Botstein described to us, the amount of history and excitement that can be seen in the city, and I'm sure you will join me in doing this. And in many ways, we could not have moved to CEU at a more decisive moment in time, because we live in a time of rapid and even tremendous transformation. Many assumptions held to be timeless merely a decade ago have not survived the test of time. And 4 trends in particular characterize our age of rapid global change. First, the world has and continues to see technological advances of a magnitude comparable to the heyday of the Industrial Revolution, which have fundamentally changed the way we live, work, and socialize. Information and communication technologies in particular have made our lives easier, faster, and above all, more global. They constantly bring together people who would otherwise have never met, give us instant access to information once limited to small elites, and allow for an unprecedented exchange of ideas that have come to alter the power structures of entire societies. Just think of the developments over the past year that have become to be known as the Arab Spring. This technological revolution lies, of course, at the core of the second major trend, and we all know it, globalization. And despite globalization's many discontents, it has presented a golden opportunity to millions of people who have lifted themselves out of abject poverty. People whose life chances had long been shattered by material circumstances and immediate threats to their survival are now in a position to lead better and more secure lives and often actively participate in the global exchange of goods, capital, and ideas. No doubt, much, even very much, remains to be done, but we do fare better here than we did 10 years ago. Thirdly, globalization has contributed to major geopolitical shifts, with rising powers claiming a prominent spot on the world's stage and bringing new ideas and demands to the table. And very rarely in history has the world weathered the rise of new powers without major wars. Fourth, not only do we need to manage this geopolitical shift in a peaceful way, we also see the deepening of transborder challenges such as climate change, nuclear proliferation, pandemics, financial instability. These problems without passports are a defining feature of our ever-growing interdependence. These trends have raised the bar for our collective ability to govern and provide public goods at all levels. But unfortunately, the gap, the very real need for improved governance and our actual problem-solving capability has grown ever wider, as we can witness every day through a casual look at the newspapers. And in this respect, we do look back, if you will, on a lost decade. The governance gap now threatens the long-term livelihood of our planet. It threatens our prosperity, as well as the social cohesion of our societies. And in short, therefore, it threatens the very nature and very future of open societies. Now, in trying to cope with these multiple challenges, public policy has begun to degenerate into permanent crisis management, if you will. Just look at the past 5 years. But while open societies have always had an edge in finding innovative solutions through the contestation of ideas, this unique strength is eroded when decisions are constantly made in an emergency mode, which naturally favors more centralized, closed-door decision-making, therefore allowing insufficient opportunity for public debate and participation at the very moment that technology would actually allow us to do that. Why has it come to this? Of course, differences in interests and values within and across nations play an important role. But let me point out to two other crucial factors at work here. First, the biggest challenges of our time are by now of a complexity and magnitude that the institutions currently governing our world are unsuccessfully struggling to manage them. While the world is producing an amazing amount of knowledge at all different levels, global, regional, local, our institutions, conceived at different, less complex times, are failing to coherently harvest this knowledge for collective problem solving. I'm convinced that reformist tinkering will not do the job this time. What we need is more responsive institutions that fairly represent our differences. And these institutions also need to be reflexive. Reflexive in the sense that questioning predominant beliefs and ways of addressing problems becomes the standard operating procedure, not an exception. Only then can we avoid the situation of the past years that we discover fallacies only when we are already deeply in calamity. Only more reflexive, responsive, and representative bodies will be able to process existing knowledge effectively and legitimately and encourage continuous innovation, thereby giving us a fair shot at measuring up to the task at hand. Second, agency and leadership matter, and so does their absence. Leadership manifests itself in a captivating vision, as well as in responsible and decisive actions. We are currently seeing too little of both, especially at the global level. As my colleague Kishore Mahbubani of the Lee Kuan Yew School in Singapore recently put it, and I quote, "Today the world, 7 billion citizens no longer live in separate boats. They live in more than 190 cabins on the same boat. Each cabin has a government to manage its affairs, and the boat as a whole moves along without a captain or a crew." And while civil society leaders have demonstrated that they can fill part of the vacuum in the global political space, we need more courageous and far-sighted government leaders working in tandem with civil society leaders. But make no mistake, nothing in the observations I presented to you is inevitable or inherently beyond human control. The new School of Public Policy and International Affairs at CEU starts off in the spirit of ambition, not despair. Contributing to improving governance will be at the heart of the school's mission, and we will try to do that in two ways. First, we will break out of disciplinary silos to help generate new knowledge about urgent problems in public policy, ranging from the fundamentals of our understanding of political behavior to questions of institutional design and analysis on concrete policy questions. Second, and just as important, we will educate our students not to become uninspired technocrats and color-by-numbers administrators, but informed, open-minded, and responsible change-makers in all arenas of governance. This educational experience involves the acquisition of substantive knowledge and abilities just as importantly as the formation of a mindset that emphasizes innovation, cultural awareness, and a commitment to the public good. We will challenge deceptively simple truths by striving to serve as an incubator for innovative thinking that conforms to the highest standards of academic excellence while exploring new ways to marry research and practice. The school will aim to promote an entrepreneurial spirit among its members, students and staff alike, fostered by a concerted and sustained attempt to bring in new and potentially diverging perspectives from all parts of the world. The solutions to our current problems will not be found in the small Western elite who, if only inadvertently, gave rise to some of these problems in the first place. Fortunately, CEU and the School of Public Policy and International Affairs in particular is uniquely positioned to tap into the intellectual resources of the Open Society Foundations and their wider network of like-minded institutions across the globe. And so the school's approach will be strongly inclusive in two ways. On the one hand, it will widen the scope of its activities beyond the geographical areas and the actors that comparable institutions tend to focus on in order to live up to the complexity of governance today. On the other hand, the school will be vigorously inclusive internally. The school is at this stage a project in the making, and I'm looking forward to collaborating with faculty, staff, and students in developing it into an institution that has a fighting chance to live up to the challenges that I've outlined. Over its 20 years of existence, this university has developed a reputation for excellence in many fields, and it's our collaborative task to preserve the best that CEU has to offer while venturing onto new paths. Dear students, let me express the hope that you will take that spirit that guides the school as an inspiration for your own studies. If Benjamin Disraeli was right, and I strongly believe he was, that there is no education like adversity, this is an exciting and energizing time to be a student. And I would challenge the whole CEU community to follow suit and push the boundaries of our still young institution. Let us not shy away from asking the big questions, from continuously challenging existing answers, and from shaping our collective global future. I thank you, and I thank you for your attention.
And now, according to tradition, we ask a faculty member to say a few words. It's my great pleasure to introduce one of our outstanding faculty members, Professor Nadia Al-Baghdadi, who is the head of the History Department.
Dear Chairman of the Board, Director, dear Dean, dear distinguished guests, colleagues, and especially dear old and new students. I have 3 minutes to address you and to say it all, so I start right away and be in time, I hope. This is the first academic year following 2 decades of experiment, trial and error, of intellectual ambition and institutional achievement. In this sense, a new phase on an even higher plane has begun, an example of which we had just the privilege to follow in Professor Reinicke's opening address. The ambition to expand agendas, to strengthen existing research and profiles of this university, which you attracted, we assume, your dear students, and to reflect critically on our intellectual compass is equally embraced by all our departments at large at the university. In this sense, we as faculty invite you to join us in the endeavor to work together, to look forward to a fruitful and challenging academic year 2011 and 12, and to join us in making this a place where working together is also joyful. As the formative years of the CEU stood under the impact of 1989, as we heard in a number of the contributions, and a new beginning, this year of the CEU's 3rd decade stands under the signature of January 2011. Remarkably, all of our speakers were referring to it. Another local, regional event, to avoid the term revolution, with global implications and repercussions felt everywhere, including here. And under what appears to be a most serious of crises felt besetting the European Union and the idea of Europe as a common endeavor. As we are in the middle of these radical transformations, it is much too early to foresee the political and social and other outcomes, but we feel clearly that now a new era has begun. I shall leave political analysis and prognostication to those better equipped to do so. Addressing you as head of department and as representative of the faculty, I'm tempted, and I may be forgiven my temptation, to overinterpret the timing of the coming to a close of an era in Eastern and Western Europe and the beginning of a new epoch in the Eastern and Southern Mediterranean and much farther afield. As historian and a specialist in Islamic studies, as well as a German and Arab scholar, I follow the current hype about the Arab Spring with a certain sense of suspicion, regardless of how much it may fill us with hope and cautious expectation. What the seeming unpredictability of recent and current events in the Middle East, this Arab Spring, really was the seeming unpredictability of the recent and current events in the Middle East really as unpredictable as we were often told? Or was this seeming unpredictability quite simply due to the hegemony of certain discourses, both scholarly and of self-proclaimed experts, of major strands of scholarship driven by immediate interests, placing less obvious fields of research at the margins, including Arab history itself? For the Arab uprisings, we are in the plural here, were less of a surprise to many of us who preferred to shun the commonplace cliché of social and political structures and the reduction of entire societies to facile blueprints. And it is in this atmosphere that we as faculty seek to fill the classroom as a critical inquiry and as always and ever alert minds. Thus, the lessons we learn of the Arab Spring are manifold. There are obvious consequences to be drawn from considering the durability of Arab despotism, fated according to commonplaces, to questions concerning the validity of cursory and hasty assumptions about the nature of certain societies, histories, or religions, in this case, the Arab. This is of relevance, we heard, not only for Europeans and Arabs, but, and you are now joined to participate in this, to the international academic community, including our small research community here at CEU. Here it figures at yet another occasion that invites caution, deliberate reflection, and a healthy dose of skepticism with regard to what passes for common sense. This is then, I may be forgiven to say this, the hour of the historian, of course, as always belated. The long breath of analysis and deep insight in conjunction and in hand with all the disciplines that you find at this university may make us less excitable and fanciful, but maybe more exact and precise. Rooted in a history of local revolutions and change, CEU and its academic community has grown and is maturing determinantly into, as you are witnessing and have witnessed already, into a cosmopolitan, research-intensive university fostering intellectual engagement and critical research as, we hope, the cutting edge of international scholarship, applied to an ever-widening international horizon and to the constant rethinking of the foundations of our scientific creeds and orthodoxies and to the paths of our future. In this sense, and to close here and now, East now meets East, as East has always met West, in their intellectual curiosity and daring, and in their struggle against societies that are not quite open yet. And they meet now at Central European University. A very warm welcome.
Thank you, Nadia. And let me just say a few words at the conclusion of this event. As well as being a provost of Central European University, I'm also a faculty member. I teach at the Department of Philosophy. And this is actually my 12th year of, when I'm starting my 12th year of teaching, which seems like a fair amount of time, but one of the great things about being an academic and being a teacher is that it never quite becomes a routine, especially not at CEU. Just when I think that I figured out a way or a formula of teaching something that is certainly bulletproof for the next 20 years, then a wonderfully inquisitive CEU student comes along and asks a question that I never thought of before, and something that throws everything in a new light. And I'm very grateful to our students, to my students, for the education that I received from them in the last 12 years. I very much look forward to being educated further by them. This concludes our opening ceremony of CEU's 21st academic year, and after the ceremony, I'd like to extend a warm invitation to all students, faculty, and other guests to join us at the reception on the ground floor of CEU's main building in the lobby of Nader 13. Finally, on behalf of the university's governance and the faculty, I would like to wish you all a very successful academic year. Thank you.